No, we're live.
Okay, thank you. I'll call to order this meeting of the City of Salem Bond Oversight Committee for June 27th, 2024. President are Hoy,
Stapleton,
Aaron,
Barney,
Courtright.
Nishioka.
All right, yeah, we have our alternate here today as well, and staff who will be identified as needed. So thank you everybody for coming. Do we have any public comment? I don't see any members of the public here. Did we get? I don't think we received any written material, did we? All right, on the first item, I'm going to move that United Way Council action item 3A over to 6A. So we can just do all of the affordable housing stuff together.
Do
So
we need a vote, or are we all just?
I think we're good. In light of that, we're going to go straight to sports courts lights with Aaron Kimsey.
Excellent. Okay, just gonna pull up that.
Oh, I'm not sure. Bear with me.
So I have an update on the sports book later in the agenda, but I think but we also have this action item. So if it's okay, I'll just provide the action item with the update sometimes.
Okay, so you want to hold up on this too? Or you want to do it all now?
I was gonna do it all now.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's kind of all together. So I'll start with the update and then we'll roll into the action item because that kind of is how it works.
Okay.
So just wanted to bring you guys up to speed on the multi-use courts for the bond projects. As you may recall, I'll remind you, we have 5 courts that are going to be updated as part of this bond improvement. And we have 2 that are currently out to bid right now on the streets, advertising. We're opening bids on the 9th of July. And so one of the courts is River Road Park. And I just gonna have a plan excerpt on the screen there. So it's gonna include a reconstructed court, a new fencing, landscaping around the perimeter, and the action item is new lighting with an updated controller. So I'll get into that here. The interest estimate that we have currently is $600,000 for the project, and the River Road, as you may know, has existing lighting, and as part of the project, we saw an opportunity to update the lighting that's out there. We've heard from the public that it's inefficient. There's some shadows, some dark spots. The height of the poles isn't very high, so that's kind of how we get to that. The existing controller, while it is functional and is operational, it does not provide some of the efficiencies and features that a new controller would have. For example, a new controller, parks could operate it remotely anywhere in town. And right now, I think parks, they have to go out and operate the controller manually a few times a year to set different times for the lights to turn off and on depending on the daylight. And so that's part of that. So I guess the action item is whether or not we want to include lighting as part of this project. The project team moved forward with design, assuming that the lighting was part of the project because there was existing lighting there that felt like needed to be upgraded. However, because there is lighting there and it is functional, may not be the best, it is functional. And so the question is, do we want to proceed with installing new lights with this project, or essentially pulling that from this work and just maintaining the existing lighting?
Do you have the breakdown of the cost?
Yes. So the lighting is about, well, it's $104,000 to provide new lighting, and so the interest estimate, the 600 includes that lighting.
Okay.
Lighting,
So it's a $500,000 project for down there.
correct.
And how much will this impact? And maybe this is a question for Rob. how much will this impact operations cost? Will that reduce operations costs some, or?
It would, the new controller, so Rob Romanek, our playing manager, the new proposed controller would have the capability of the staff to control it, so when daylight saving time changes, they don't have to go out there and manually adjust the equipment inside of it. And also, I'll just add, it would reduce light pollution for an adjacent residential property, multifamily residential property. The current lighting of the facility is the exact same light fixtures that are used to light the parking lot. So they're not designed for sports court lighting. So it would have reduced light pollution off the court and while improving the lighting of the court.
Which we're asking our residents to do. So it kind of makes sense that we lead by example.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, absolutely.
So do the lights just automatically come on every single night and stay on for a certain amount of time, or?
No, there is a
a
physical button the
Okay.
user pushes and it activates it for a set period of time.
Okay.
The adjustments we're talking about are certain hours where that button does not work. So if you
Okay.
just go to the park at 3 in the morning and you push the button, the lights will not turn on.
Okay, thank you.
I think the reason why we wanted to bring this to you guys, because there is, as it sits right now, and we'll know more in 2 weeks when we open the bid to see if we get favorable prices or not. That's always come that question, where the bids gonna come in. We do have three other courts, as I mentioned, that are gonna be designed and constructed next summer. And so right now we're showing that we're able to afford all the projects with some contingency and this lighting included. But it does, including this lighting does, it's tighter. It's a tighter budget with this lighting. And so it could be a different conversation if in 2 weeks we get really high bids and that number, that our contingency starts to diminish. We don't know yet at this time.
Aaron, do those other projects also involve upgrade to lighting, and we anticipate the same savings? So sort of out of all those projects, how many are we talking about?
Good question. So, and you can fill in the gaps. We have, so there's 5 projects. 3 are multi-use courts, and those typically do not have lighting. And the courts that we're improving with this project do not and will not have lighting. We have 2 tennis court projects. We have this River Road project, and we have Highland Park project, Broadway. It has existing lighting, and that lighting is it needs to be replaced. If not by this project, then by some other funding, because some lights are currently out at that park, and we made the decision to hold off on replacing them early, just trying to do it with the project, whether with this funding or some other funding. Those lights are original to that court, and I don't know how old that court is, but it's probably 30 to 40 years old. And then we've been replacing lamps, obviously, over that time period. So yeah, shorter answer to your question, there'd be one more court with lights.
Okay, so if we did, if I hear you correctly, there's one court where the lights absolutely need to be redone. If we don't do the lights on all the other courts or use existing lights, does that open up the ability to do an additional project, or does that just basically say we're just going to limit the scope of these particular projects and impact?
So if we didn't do lights here, for example, we would be essentially saving $100,000 that we could potentially roll into, depending on what other savings we get along the way as far as getting these future projects. There is the potential that we may have enough money to do some minor improvements to another court. I don't think we're going to see enough savings to do a massive improvement like what we're seeing here or on the other courts. It would be like maybe a net or
Because this money was specifically designated for sports courts.
yes.
That's
Yeah.
the reason we're really talking about it. It was very clear sports courts were included. Lighting was not really mentioned, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done. So this is a great opportunity for the committee to weigh in and say, should we go forward?
Right.
Yeah.
And as I understand from a previous conversation, this is going to add the glorious sport of pickleball to one of these courts, correct?
Yeah, so you can see on the screen, and this actually is already out of date, because we just made this change in the last minute. what we're showing for striping at River Road includes 2 tennis courts and 2 pickleball courts overlaid. And so in this circumstance, the pickleball court would share the tennis court. However, what we're gonna do is one of these courts will have 2 pickleball courts and it'll bring your own net type courts.
Oh,
And they'll be so 2 courts, 2 pickleball courts on 1 tennis court, and then the other court will maintain what we have there, which is 1 over 1. And that was a direct, that was as of a direct request from some public input about wanting more pickleball courts at this park.
Okay, other, Mindy?
My question is, if we did not do the lighting at River Road, could it be updated later? I mean, could we prepare it kind of with the construction so we could do it later?
Also a very good question. I looked into that and I think the answer is yes. So what we could decide is we could lay the groundwork for updated lights. That's happen at a future date. And so right now, the way we have the contract set up is we're purchasing and installing the lighting under a different contract. So what's out on the streets right now is court, the fencing, the landscaping, and some of that conduit and electrical systems for the lights. And then we have a separate requisition that's just procuring the material, the lighting material, and then that lighting contractor will install lights. So we could conceivably hold off on the lighting installation, maintaining existing lighting, and then if we finally have enough funding at the end of next year, after the course will finish.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking, because it sounds like Sumter needs it more.
Sumter doesn't need any lighting.
It's
But
not some, well,
Oh,
no.
Highland,
Oh, Highland, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
had the wrong one. Okay, Highland definitely needs it.
yes. Yes. And we've included,
Okay,
for the estimate for Highland, we have a 30% design and estimate, and we've included lighting in that estimate. So we're assuming lighting is gonna be part of that project right now.
okay.
And we're still showing contingency.
Well, just in general, I would prefer to do the project right rather than try to thin the soup and do more projects kind of halfway. That's just in general how I approach it. But Councilor
I
Shielder?
had a question for you. You indicated that there's been some complaints from neighbors with the lighting that's there. If the choice was to not do this upgrade, can you fix that problem or not? Or do you know?
So the comments we receive are from users of the current tennis courts
Oh,
that about the lighting that's there today. It's just a staff observation that the lights are flooding the neighboring property. It's just there hasn't actually been a complaint about light pollution.
Okay,
but
but
we
you
are
recognize
concerned
that
and we
it's there.
recognize that, yes.
so, and so that answers the question in the sense that it would need to be upgraded to fix that. Okay, thank you.
I mean, I'd rather do the lighting at both places, as you said, but if the bids come in higher than what we anticipate, what's our contingency plan?
But we already have it budgeted for Highland. So that shouldn't be a concern. I guess my thought is that if the bids come in too high, then we can always make a different decision.
We can reevaluate. Yeah, I just wasn't wanting to. But I think the reason why we wanted, like Brian said, we wanted to bring this to you guys because when we estimated these tennis court projects, we did not actually estimate lighting. And that was, I think, really more of a miss on our part when we were putting those numbers together because all of our tennis courts have lighting or will. If we built a new tennis court, it would have lighting. And so, but it wasn't included with our estimate. And if you read the bond language, there's really no mention of the lighting. It just says to reconstruct or improve the sports court. So there's that. The lighting is not kind of read between the lines.
Right.
So that's what we wanted to bring it through.
Okay, so what's your pleasure?
I think if the savings of not doing it doesn't really net you any major other things, then I'd say we do it.
I agree.
I think barring a disastrous bid that comes in 2 weeks, we should go for it.
And we can, I'll provide an update at our next meeting in July.
Okay.
And say, hey, we're here. What's about this?
Yeah. Oops. Cool. Okay.
Great. So I have an action item, I think it's not on the agenda, but I'd like to bring similar type conversation regarding Sumter Park. And so this is in the part that's out to bid right now. We're bidding this with the River Road Park. Similarly, reconstructed core, new fencing, landscaping. Our estimate currently is at just over 552,000. And what I wanted to bring to this group is this is one of the parks that we identified as having poor pathways within the park. And I wanted to get a little further on our path. And we came to you guys several months ago, agreed to how we were going to score those paths. And my goal would have been to provide you guys with a prioritized list of those parks. Unfortunately, we don't have that right now. But I do know that Sumter is high on the assessment list as far as condition of pathways. And so because of the efficiencies of our contractor being out there, we have included in the contract repairs to these paths, knowing that in most likelihood they would make that prioritized list. And so that's about $80,000 just for the paths.
Is that included in the 552 or on top
That's
of that?
included in the 552.
Okay.
But I wanted to bring it to the group because technically that money needs to go, that list of parks needs to go to council as part of the prioritized list and get approved. And so I just wanted to have full disclosure that right now we're including it with this park. We could remove it and do it later with the path contract. But we thought we're here, we got a contractor, we can do this work. So I wanted to get you guys' take on that.
What do you think the savings is doing it now with the current work?
Good question. I mean, I could throw a number out, but I don't know. I don't have any. I don't have anything that's really substantiated. I'd have to go back and look at, cost of putting together another contract, mobilization costs, and we're doing it now instead of a year from now, or inflation costs.
And then we're disrupting the park twice. Which is a big deal.
Yeah.
I think when we looked at to kind of answer that question for R&R projects, when we talked about adding some of the pieces, we were in the 15 to 20% range for savings. So it'd probably be something along those lines.
Okay. I was going to interject that for this summer, our rec program has canceled 2 weeks of summer camp at this park because we anticipate that the construction activities would be occurring. So that comment about disrupting the park is something to consider.
Because otherwise we would have another period of disruption for summer. Yeah.
I think I remember the pictures from this park, and they were pretty bad.
It's rough, yeah. Yeah, they're, like I said, they're high on the assessment list. There's other criteria.
Where's Sumter southeast? So
It's in four?
Yeah.
Based on the map I just looked at, should be four.
South of-
Sorry, what was that?
It's south of Cleveland.
South of
Okay.
Is that work, the court project, has that already been put out to bid?
It's on the streets right now.
Okay, so this has not been incorporated in what's already out there. Would it be the same contractor?
Yes.
Are we talking about a different?
No, we've included it in the bid.
Okay.
So it's already, I got ahead of myself and put it in there, and it's on the streets, and we're getting bid for it.
Oh, so you're asking for.
This is asking for forgiveness.
This is for asking for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Asking for forgiveness, or, we can always do a deductive change order and say, you know what, we decided we're not gonna move forward. It's a line item in the bid. We can say we're not gonna do this work, and that would be a big deal.
In my mind, it seems like now's the right time to do it. You've got to budget it. It's what I don't want to see another period of disruption for you in summer programs. So to me, it's well worth it.
As a reminder, there's $4 million set aside for path equipment work, so this is kind of a drop in the bucket.
And if I recall, we were going to hit all of the pours.
That was the.
So this is,
We
know it's going to be in that.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense to do that.
And there's an efficiency thing.
Right. What do others think? thumbs up, thumbs up.
But my only thought is if you see the bids and find that that item is what much raises your eyebrows.
Sure.
And doing it separately makes sense. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. If we see a number, if they're playing games with that number, or we're getting high costs because of the time of year when we're bidding and that pull it out.
Mike, I can't remember if you said yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And Linda, you're good. Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Description.
sounds like you're good to go.
Okay.
Forgiveness granted.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if we need to just make that like a line item, agenda item.
Probably.
Items to
Forgiveness?
ask for forgiveness.
Yeah. Okay, is that everything then on action items?
Everything on those two items.
All right, so now we'll move on to transportation sidewalk, Liberty Road, Southeast and Davis Road.
All right, so I'm working on the permission model, so. Style there.
Nice.
So, I mean, sometimes you have to ask for forgiveness, but we're gonna try this approach. So up on the screen is an exhibit of something. So you might recall we progressed the Davis Road intersection project a little bit earlier than what was shown in the original schedules. We took that information out to the neighborhood associations, and one of the first things that we heard was, so what are you doing to help the kids cross Liberty Road?
Because that's Crossler
Yes.
right there.
Yes. So the original scope did not include anything on as far as for crossing there, because on the east side of the road, I don't know, if, just to kind of give you some awareness, it's a really steep bank. Just there's no other way to describe it. So that's part of the reason why it hasn't been developed in the past, you know, as far as with adjacent development or anything like that. So we looked at a couple different options as far as for roadway width, and really came down with, this is basically our least cost option, which would be to connect on to the existing sidewalk that you can kind of see on the very bottom of the page. And
I'm
then-
not seeing what you're talking about right yet.
So here we go. So right here, there's existing
Oh,
sidewalk that
okay,
comes
thank
up
you, thank you.
from an adjacent development. But this is really super steep through here. So
Gotcha.
we would be basically kind of realigning the curb and sidewalk. We'd be providing an 8-foot wide sidewalk since it's curb line, it's close to the school. And then grading back the bank to be able to adjust what we need to for getting the new sidewalk in there.
Okay.
This is a need that has been out there. Julie's applied for Safe Routes to Schools for a couple times. It has not been successful. We did get a request as far as some of the missing sidewalks for this location, and we have scored it. It does not come up, and I mean, it's 60, let me look at my notes. It's 60 out of 225 locations, so it's not terribly high that we would actually be able to fund it, but it's a huge need that's out there. It's in the cost estimate right now is $550,000 to be able to build that. So we have a couple options. You know, we're approaching this as an opportunity for some of the similar reasons that Aaron brought up, including things for the sports courts, but as far as economy of scale working here and the like. So one option for funding would be to basically use the missing sidewalk bucket. It's the crossing bucket that we made all the applications for with ODOT.
Right, that was the cost.
So we could make, basically looking at a score of or a ranking of 60 over 225, you know, we'd have to make an exception to what we would want to use the funds for that. Another option would be to utilize existing Davis Road funds, knowing that we would have a shortfall in the end with the project, and we would look at that later on. Or the third option is to do nothing and add it to our future needs list.
Question,
Yes, ma'am.
can you orient me on where is the school and
Yep.
where is the traffic flow for the PEDs? Where are they
Sure.
coming and going from?
So the school is up here on the
Okay.
northwest corner. So north is straight up on the map. There's a bunch of new development off here to the southeast.
Okay.
Currently, there is a T intersection back. I do not remember what the name of it is.
Mildred.
No, it's not, I think it's Summit. It's not quite to Mildred.
Summit,
Would
that's
would it help to open up the rules map? Yes.
Oh, we could.
Yeah, it would
We
help
could.
us do it
You-
less.
Let's do that. Can you type in Google Maps? for me real quick?
That's teamwork.
Oh, my goodness.
Then type in Davis and Summit.
But then you have
Once
to
it comes
wait
up.
for it
But you have to
learn,
wait
Because our
for,
internet is really
it's
slow.
really slow.
This computer is slow.
This is what does on my
Oh, it does?
computer, yeah.
Get your
Google's-
notifications.
Yeah.
This
Slow
isn't
down.
slow. This is ridiculous.
Well, you
There
know,
you
we
go.
had some internet issues, right?
Here, I can just, yeah. Come
That's what we
on.
do, that's it. Line by line, every road.
All right, so here's Liberty Road, Davis, Crossler Middle School right here.
Okay, do they where do they enter the school? Do they have
On
to?
Davis.
On
Davis,
Davis,
yeah.
Davis,
okay.
yes,
So there's some sidewalks in there.
yes. So we have good sidewalks at the
Can
intersection.
you get rid
both
of that
sides.
box?
Yes, no thanks. So we have good sidewalks here on Davis Road. But there's basically about a 600-foot gap of no sidewalk on the east side of Liberty.
Can you scroll down? I want to see where that new development was as it relates to this project. Like, is there another crossing area, like a,
So Summit View is the closest crossing where kids are coming from the east. All of this subdivision up here. There is not any sidewalk farther south from here because it goes back to it's developed, but it's not subdivision style developed.
there's sidewalk above that? I don't- Oh, right there.
Yeah, it starts right here
Okay.
on both sides of the road, but then it stops because that was the boundary for this development.
But there's
And
no real, I mean, there's no real crossing there.
There's a T intersection right here.
So it's a legal crossing,
yeah.
but not, and it is a place that people have submitted requests for safer crossings. And so I think that the issue is that actually where the best crossing is, or would it be better to take them to the signal?
Right.
Because of the curve there, the signal probably is gonna be a little bit safer.
And so the new section would be all along this bare property here, or
Yes,
just on the trees?
Where the tree.
Basically right through here,
Oh, okay.
coming up.
And that's where the signal is going to be.
And the signal is gonna be up here, yes, at Liberty
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Davis.
Okay.
And what's the speed limit through here?
75. I think.
Feels like that.
That's what they travel.
It feels like, I think it's 45, yeah.
And I think that
45.
it's
Why
fast.
is it
The-
45?
I know that we've submitted, or Kevin has submitted some requests for speed zone adjustments that have not been approved because they don't meet the standards. The thought is when we get this signal, and especially the other one, we're hoping that will actually lower the speed so that we can have approval to lower that speed limit.
And this is from the ODOT gods?
It's based on the ODOT standards, yes.
Oh, I meant when he puts in for approval.
Yeah,
That, okay.
yes.
It
But
does-
whether we were doing it or they were doing it, it's the same standards that ODOT adopts.
I guess I was trying to clarify the question because like when we did 45th and 17th, it went to the ODOT gods. I don't
Yes.
know who they are, but
Yes.
and they
speed
and it was kind of
Yes.
like a special or a special permission to do those two things.
Well, they gave us permission and then the law changed.
Right.
That allows the cities to do the process, but it's the same process,
Okay.
same standards. That's
So
she's
that's
referring
what you're saying. They
Mhm.
put in for a lower speed limit on this section through that process
Yes,
and have been denied.
correct.
Is there any way that we could lobby for that?
You don't lobby for that. It's based on the standards, right? I mean, sorry, I'm probably speaking out of turn, getting ahead, this is really Kevin's thing. I just know that we have submitted one here. And I know that there is hopes that when we get the signals put in, we will be able to get a lower speed limit in place.
It's based on data, not on popularity or political pressure.
Right.
It's literally based on data.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
You said signals, Julie, is there?
There's another signal that will be going in at Mildred. That's also tied to development.
But that is gonna be a ways out.
That's, yeah.
But the one we're doing at Davis, is it next summer, right?
Depending on how things go, it could be, yes.
So probably next summer. Mildred is probably years away.
Oh, okay.
Not enough.
And is this a,
SDPs and-
is that brown patch there is already developed, or I don't know how old this picture is.
I think it's pretty new,
Yeah.
2024, so this is probably an area that's under development right now.
Okay.
Fortunately, in this area, any of the students coming from the north, there is already a pedestrian crossing improvement up here at Holder. So the kids that are going to school, they cross up there and then they come down the sidewalk on the west side of the road. Likewise, when they go home, they don't try to cross Liberty. They're naturally, they stay on that side and go up.
And there's no rapid beacon lights there, it's just a pedestrian crosswalk with the center island?
Up, I believe up there,
Is
yeah.
there a
Correct.
Central Island?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a median island, yeah.
There's a median island up
And
here.
how much does something
Oh,
like
yes.
that cost without the lights and everything?
Is there, are those just signs or there's RFBs?
There's no RFB, no. It's,
Looks like something in there.
there's maybe a school
signs there.
zone, but it's not, there is no RFB. We've had requests for adding an RFB here, and it's in, once again, it's also in the Safer Crossings program, has been submitted to do enhancements.
Okay.
This was put in a number of years ago.
Yeah, to put a pedestrian crossing in there with improvements is usually in the $200,000 range.
Okay. I
Um,
just have heard that with the rapid beacon lights, it goes up to the 500, right, Julie?
It'd be,
It has to do, well, that's what our estimates are for the
Yes.
4-lane roads
yeah,
with the ADA ramps and all the other associated improvements.
it would be 300,000 anyway.
Thoughts? I think we should do it.
I don't.
Okay.
I would rather see something like what we just were talking about down here at the summit.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It's gonna save a couple $100,000. It's not perfect, but it utilizes what we already have in place and kind of carries on the same behavior the other kids are having to the north of this. It also creates a safer crossing in between what I would call like a, what do they call those, mega blocks or whatever? Where there's really not
Super blocks.
super blocks between Davis and Mildred.
Mhm.
I don't know, that's what I would vote for. Because I also want to protect, I'm trying to be protective of that money for the equity piece of this.
Yeah.
Although I want to do all the things for all the people, I also want to really protect that equity lens.
Rick, does that sidewalk on the west side of Liberty, it runs almost to Summit, right? Basically where that dark line.
It
It's right
stops.
there.
It does. It stops right here. So we would have to look to see which, with turning movements, people wouldn't be too keen on wanting to block this area right here for an island. So we'd probably be looking to put it on the south side for crossing there. Which we'd have a retaining wall and some additional, because it drops off on that side. So
The,
other location that I'm curious about is further north,
Where the sidewalk stops?
right there.
Mhm.
Is it
Yeah.
in the fur?
Yeah,
big
driveway.
Firs, yeah, basically goes into this development over here.
pretty sure that's private.
That's where our
But the
sidewalk
curve
ends on
there,
the
is
east
that gonna
side.
be something that
You're
would
also
be
on
able
the
to?
corner.
There is, what comes into play is the farther you move up, there is
Yeah.
limited visibility from people coming around the corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the higher speeds makes that, yeah. We went out there and looked at it with Kevin
Well-
Hoffman, and it's not pretty.
Well, but
The
how
RF,
how far is that would be my first question. And then if we have the signal triggering, that is going to create gaps for pedestrians to cross. And if we have a protected
that?
crossing, that would seem to
just right click.
deal with that.
What kind of
Let me-
witchcraft
let me
are you
sh-
doing over
No,
there?
no. So
You're learning
I'll clear the
something.
measurement. So all you have to do is right click on it, measure distance. Just like that.
Isn't that amazing? Google.
It's a pretty cool thing.
So that's what, 340 feet?
Yeah, 341 feet, plus or minus.
I mean, I think we can do more evaluation on the right location there. I think the
Mhm.
question is, should we look at that versus sidewalk or nothing? And the one question I would have is, if we make a decision to put a bed crossing there, and we're trumping other things that are in the bed crossing bucket, we can certainly do that. It just makes the decision a little bit more
It
complicated.
undermines our process.
Would it be easier to take a $200,000 or $300,000 hit to the Davis Road? Does that make sense? I don't know what that budget looks like.
Yeah, I mean, the concern I have about Davis Road is it was at the end of the bond. And so by then the costs are probably gonna be higher. I mean, we already seen higher costs. Our hope was the first 5 years, they cost would be less and we save money and we could apply it in the last 5 years. We only applied it to the midpoint of the bond. And so in all likelihood, costs are gonna be higher. It may be there, it may not.
But we'll also have bond premium, hopefully,
Well,
to spend and interest.
This sidewalk would otherwise be constructed as part of development. If something happens on the adjoining property.
Up here, yeah, it would be a condition of development.
You're saying that's not likely to be developed?
It's really steep up through there. And we have not heard, I mean, there's already homes that are built up in that area. It'd be very expensive.
I'm wondering about the area, on the west side that's all cleared out. Is there a development going on there? And,
Down south a
yeah,
little bit.
yes, right in there.
Right in here.
Yeah, I'm not sure that
Right
that one's being
there.
developed, but that.
This
would
all
definitely
is
be
right here,
developed.
yeah.
And so are there requirements,
Joint Act
traffic
to approve that.
requirements?
Well, part of it was the signal. They had to contribute to the
They do.
signal.
Okay, so they have to contribute to that.
Right.
And I'm
They don't have
guessing
any sidewalks.
they'll, I'm guessing there'll be frontage.
They'll do frontage, but what I'm wondering is if there's a linking sidewalk requirement in between that frontage and the gap. I'm not sure if that was
Up through here?
Development or not, but
That'd be great.
We could look into it.
Because if there's gonna be homes there, then that's now expanding who's gonna be walking to the school, who, and where other pedestrian crossings might need to be.
Well, does that joint act go up to Crossler
Yes.
all the way?
Yeah.
So they might be walking on that back
Yes.
street.
Oh, sure.
on
Yeah.
Liberty.
Yeah, they'd go
and
right
then
that
cross
way.
at Davis.
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't. Yeah, they'd
They
cross.
cross
Davis.
right in here.
And there isn't a crosswalk
They would
there.
just run.
They were just running.
Yeah,
That's true.
That's where all the traffic
I mean, one thing that's happened with Davis is more development has been occurring. So some of the improvements that we were expecting to build are actually happening through development. So there's a potential that they could be saved by the time we get out there
Okay,
for more.
that's kind of what I was wondering, and then again, there's gonna be probably some other locations where there's gonna need a pedestrian crossing.
At that, what's the name of that J Street?
Joint Act.
Joint Act?
Okay.
No.
Oh, there's a crossing.
There's a crossing there.
Okay, there is a
They have a school
Good
crossing
I
guard
was
there.
just wondering.
Good.
Yeah.
And there's a crossing guard, you
There,
said.
there has been a crossing guard there, whether they staff it or not now, but it is a school zone, yes.
Okay,
Actually,
That-
looks like there's,
that makes
looks like
me feel
there's a
better.
school flasher right there.
The-
Yeah. There's a school
The
flasher.
school district has really been struggling with
Staffing
staffing
that,
those.
yeah.
So for the most part, they're not staffed.
I'm fine with it.
Like Capitol used to be, it's not anymore.
Okay, so what are we sound like we're a little bit all over the map.
I had one- I had one other question with my cyclist helmet on.
Sure.
Is on the proposed sidewalk that you're asking us to consider.
Mhm.
I see the bike lane leading right up to that. What does the cross section look like? Do we have a bike lane there or?
We would basically provide a 48-foot wide improvement, so you'd be able to still have 3 lanes and bike lanes on both sides.
With buffer or no buffer?
No buffer, because there's no buffer out anywhere else.
You know me, I gotta ask.
I know.
45 miles an hour is a lot to be right next to it.
Courtney.
Say
Can
again,
we go back to the question? I think
the map?
it's the first.
I think what we're wondering about is where would be a really good place for a crossing?
and how much do we
And how much would that be? And
And there's some
Come back.
consideration about speed, which is influenced by the timing of the signal.
Mhm.
So, some of your consideration about where the crossing should be may be influenced by a subsequent speed change.
We put pickleball on that sidewalk.
Are
Does that
there,
slow 'em down?
are there still beacon, like the 20-mile-an-hour zone? I'm guessing this all
School zone,
lands in
yes.
that school zone,
This is-
but
On Liberty as
are
well.
there?
Yes.
So where are those lights? I guess when you're reviewing this whole thing,
Sure.
maybe you could take that into consideration.
Sure.
Where are those flashing lights at?
Right. Well, and fortunately for us, this is some great feedback to be able to hear that, yes, the do nothing option, I think, is probably not an option. there seems like there's a lot of support to provide some sort of a crossing improvements in the area. I think it's been good feedback to hear different locations, different ideas in that aspect. So
I can tell you in my 7+ years on council, that section is the #1 area of complaint. And I don't live anywhere. I live 12 miles from there, I think it is. I mean, and yet I still get complaints about that area. Like it's the #1 most complained about area and has been over the 7 years.
For speed or crossing?
All of it.
Davis Road.
Dangerousness.
That's a really big, fast intersection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people, I mean, it's a Davis and Mildred and Liberty are all, I mean, it's just a huge concern for
The map
everybody.
doesn't show the elevation change.
Yeah, it's
Right,
right,
It's
it
a
really-
It's a hill in the corner and it really does, it looks tame there, but it really does.
when you're out there, it's a lot different.
Yeah, so that's the concern with putting in something.
Farther,
We need to make sure that
Right.
it's, the traffic engineer would say there's visibility.
Right, well, we need to not be deciding that at Harrison River State.
Right.
It's not-
But I
But we
also don't want us to be afraid of putting in built infrastructure that makes the drivers want to slow
I
down.
agree.
So I think we need to build it so that it is, like, maybe we do need to consider buffering those bike lanes, to
Mhm.
constrain the lanes, to bring them smaller so that people don't feel such an urge or flow to go 40, 50 miles an hour,
Yeah,
right?
I'm bored of my pickleball suggestion. aren't you?
Exactly. If we're out there playing.
all right.
So,
Is it a question of staging and timing because of this is later in on? And like how can we present
I
a
think,
plan to accomplish all of these different?
I think we can go back and look at a couple options on Liberty and we'll bring it back to the committee.
sounds
in a
good.
month or two and then. figure that
You
out.
kind of have our thoughts and now you can go back
Yep.
and noodle on it and figure out what are some of the best options and then come back to us with
Yeah, with
maybe
some costs and.
some narrowing it down to choices. Sounds
And
good.
this one coordinates. This one is advanced, so it's next summer construction. The whole Davis itself is still at the end of the bond, but we advanced some money just because of the complaints of this one.
The outside one, very
You
annoying.
have to go in the other door.
At some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or maybe you try purchasing first and you discover, oh, that's all we got. And then so maybe there's some.
Okay, so thank you, Brian and staff for that. We're on now to management update information items, project update, transportation. We're off of Courtney's troubles getting locked out, sorry. Sidewalk infill and replacement update.
With my chip bag yet.
I know, Linda did that for you.
Just as we were.
Sidewalk infill and replacement update, Julie Hansen.
Okay, so very related to what we were just talking about. See if I can make this.
If you click on one spot and then click on the right click, you can measure.
You learned something today,
Yeah,
so
I
it's a great
did.
day.
Thank you.
Do you want to change the size? It's
I
on
just
the,
want to zoom in, yeah.
so it's on the top.
It's on the top.
The minus sign top
Like right in
middle.
the
Plus and
middle.
minus in the middle of the screen.
Oh, there, thank you. Okay, so I was asked to give an update on where we are with these 3 different categories. And so as you remember, there's the pedestrian crossing, the sidewalk infill, and the sidewalk replacement. So I wanted to briefly start with just the pedestrian crossings. As you know, this category of funding has $3.5 million in it. We have not allocated any of that out yet to any projects. Between January and April, we received approximately 225 requests for crossings, and adding that to our other requests over the last few years, we had 800 requests at 325 unique locations. At your April meeting, we talked about using some of these bond funds to leverage a grant application, and so we submitted a grant application to the Safe Streets and Roads for All 2024 grant program for these 19 locations here. These 19 locations total just under $12 million if we are successful in getting this. about 2.4 million of the bond funds would be match for just under 10 million of federal funds. They say they're going to announce awards in August and November. My hope is that we would hear in August. It's a little unclear. Last time they did some rolling announcements. And so at least by November, we'll know whether or not we're successful. If we are successful, great. We will still have about 1.1 million left to talk with this committee about how you want to move forward with those. If we are not successful, then we will have the conversation about what we want to do with that 3.5 million. A good starting place would be to look at these 19 and say, which of these 19 do we want to check off with 3.5 million? So anyway, that's the status of those.
I will say Julie's on a roll. 2.7 million.
Yeah, we just got the raise grant for Front Street.
Yes, that's so awesome. Good
3
job,
million
thank you.
for
Yes.
Safe Streets last year.
Yep, a lot of grant writing going on. Because not all of them are successful.
But
Including-
lately, they kind of have been.
Been doing better, yeah.
How many years did it take us to get McGo-Crest though?
6 or 7, I always forget.
Without a federal law.
Well, and that was for construction. Planning, I'm
Yeah.
thinking is probably a little easier.
Might be.
So the other two categories, so we have sidewalk infill category and the sidewalk replacement. So just on this map here, you can see the blue dots are the requested sidewalk infill. The green dots are the sidewalk repair or replacement. On the sidewalk infill, we received 207 requests approximately, and that number might be a little less than things we've talked about before because some of them were miscategorized, like people put them in sidewalk infill, but they meant it for sidewalk replacement, whatever. We have engaged DKS, we have a DKS staff person helping to support my group because I'm down a staff, and so the staff person is Nate, and Nate has gone through and done quality control on all the dots to make sure they're in the right locations. And just this week, we ran all of the blue locations through using GIS tools through our scoring system. We're still doing quality control on that, but it's a good step. Our next step is going to be to take the top tier of those projects and remove duplicates, scope solutions in that top tier, and start to develop cost estimates. And then we will, and we'll be looking at issues like, if somebody suggested, sidewalk infill on, well, there's quite a few here.
Yeah, there's 7 on 2 blocks there or something.
I'm looking for this one here. Okay, these blue. Okay,
Yeah.
That's all Browning. That's an urban street standard upgrade. That's not gonna be fit into into the sidewalk infill category. So that's gonna be part of that initial culling down. And then we be coming back to this committee with our smaller list for you guys to consider making a preliminary recommendation on. Some other thought on these ones. I don't remember, so I will move on. On the sidewalk repair replacement, so between January and April 15th, we received over 500 requests through our portal. We added that 500 to the 1,800 service requests that we already have on the books. So we're talking about somewhere around 2,300 requests. That's a lot. Sometimes people would request to put in a dot that said, you need to replace the sidewalk on this street from here to here. And so our staff has had to separate that out into one dot for each property because that's how they manage their inspections. They've been going out and doing inspections, hazard inspections on all of the replacement requests. They're at about 90% complete with that. And they are also working with GIS to get ready to move it through the scoring criteria once they have the hazard data done. So once they get to that point, they will be taking a deeper dive into the top tier locations. And that includes separating out things that are maintenance versus capital, because this is bond funds. So we're not going to, go in and grind out a lift, and we're also not going to tear out a panel that just needs a grind. And then also looking at continuity and cost. I did remember my comment on the earlier one, the sidewalk infill. So when we're talking about, a little over 200 requests, some of those are duplicates, but, we have $6 million, right? And so I'm guessing that that's going to fund somewhere between 5 and 20 projects, depending on the size of the project. Now, if they're all small projects, maybe it's a little more than 20. If they're bigger projects, maybe it's less than 5. But just for context, when we talk about those 200 locations, we're gonna take that, whatever that top tier is, and whether that's the top, 50 or 30, and then we'll, get more detail on those ones to bring back to you guys. And the same with the sidewalk replacement. I can't tell you exactly how many or how much we'd be able to do, but obviously we're not going to be able to do 2,300 locations. In terms of our timeline, we are on track with the timeline that we shared with you and with council. We expect to be ready to come back to the committee towards the end of this year. Haven't quite figured out if we're going to, I'm assuming we're going to split it between different meetings. So we're not going to try to go, sidewalk infill and then we'll sequence it, because I don't think we could get through all of that in one meeting. But we're not quite there yet to figure out the exact sequencing. And then the remaining steps after we work with this committee to get a preliminary recommendation are to get public input on that. And then for this committee to finalize their recommendation and go to city council for approval. That's all I have.
Questions?
So would that be coming to council in like 4 months or for approval, final approval? You were saying that too.
Final approval after you guys have done your thing? Well, we're going to be coming back to this committee probably somewhere around November.
Okay.
And then
And it goes back out for public
then it
comment,
goes
right?
back out for, then we have we have 2 to 3 months built in for this committee to work through those lists.
Okay.
So depending on how long you take, then we have 1 to 2 months for public comment, and final recommendation another month to 2, and then council approval after that. So using the longer time frames, it could be next August, September, that would be coming to city council, not as in 2 months from now, but if some of the steps get shortened, then it might be in the spring, but somewhere between spring and summer of next year.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right, so McGilchrist, Rick.
Did we ever
So
share
just a
that
quick
Picture.
Just a quick update on McGilchrist. I was actually out there with the project manager this morning. It's looking really nice. We are all on track to open the intersection on Monday 1st. Signals all heated up. It's looking good out there. And so that will basically get traffic open north-south on 22nd and really open up that area. So following that opening, the closure will then shift to the west in between 22nd and 19th to allow us to start working on the culverts that are out there. Basically, it's all fish passage, and it's actually a better skew for the creek, and everything is working really well out there. Phase 2, which is basically from where we're stopping at Ford Street to the east at 25th. We're working on essentially the 90% plans for that. Our goal right now is and our schedule is to basically advertise that this fall for continued construction next year. So that is going well. And then for phase 3, which is 12th Street basically to 19th Street on the west side, we're starting to work with the railroad and ODOT Rail to discuss how it's all gonna work right there at where the Pringle Creek, yeah, just near
I
Pringle.
haven't
so.
dared go down. I haven't
Don't-
dared get near it. I'm basically getting around it in all the ways I can, because I know it's been very problematic, but exciting to hear that it's moving along.
It was really nice to be able to kind of take the walk out there this morning and just kind of see the road and everything, and to see on the bike promenade how that's going to all come together, and how they have them shot, how they have them finished differently so they kind of stand out from each other. It's going to look really cool.
Questions? Okay, and we've already disposed of 5A3, so we will move on to continued business and affordable housing bond allocation. And as a reminder, we're going to pull forward the council action $500,000 grant to United Way into this section as well. So Josh, are you leading this off, and Kristen?
Just real quick, I'll introduce it and I'll turn it over. Just as a reminder, so as part of the bond, we issued a 17.5 million for affordable housing / library branches, 10 million specifically for, at that time it was considered like gap funding for affordable housing projects, and then 7.5 to somehow co-locate library branches and affordable housing. We have a couple projects that have been considered for that funding. I think it was a meeting, late last year, we talked about, the approach the oversight committee wants to take, opening up for applications and things like that. So I'm hoping Kristen can kind of walk us through those options. And we do have a couple specific projects to talk about too.
I'm going to talk about the specific projects first, and then what we may want to do, including developing criteria, have an application process, that sort of thing. So the first one is one that was brought forward by council members, and that is the cottages out on Market Street with a $500,000 request. That's the gap that they have to move on to doing the second phase. So to participate in that project, we would have to have an ownership stake, which could either be in the land or in the units as they're developed. This is land that we, basically donated. It was a very nominal value amount that we sold it to them for. So we would either be buying back the land for greater value than we donated to them for, so that we could meet that test and have ownership, or we would have to be a partner in the ownership of the units that are developed.
For how long?
The life of the bond, is that?
So
Right.
these are kind of interesting. So our broker, when we sold the bond, structured the taxable series in an interesting way. So they're actually paid off in 2026. So just here in the next couple of years
okay.
is how long we have to be within ownership.
Do they have to be built before?
No, we had.
Yeah, I mean, because in
With
likelihood,
that project, I don't know.
it's a very slow developing.
Sorry.
There's
I
nothing
didn't
that
think they were-
wouldn't keep us from maintaining ownership.
So that's the first project that has been brought forward. The second one that came out of a meeting that I had last week with Richard Berger, and they are looking at building 183 units out near Corbin.
I met with him as well.
Okay, so fully affordable, and they have significant offsite improvements. There's road improvements to bring the roads up to urban standards, water line and sewer line extensions as well. And they're looking for $3 million to fill that gap. So a couple of things to consider. And one is approving either of these in absence of having a process and criteria. Okay. So that's one consideration. Second consideration is for the Neighborly Ventures project. They're submitting an application to OHCS for the remainder of their funding in the very near term. That's occurring by the end of July. So they need to know what their pro forma is going to look like, or have kind of a thumbs up on this to help them through that process. They would be breaking ground next spring if they get this money.
And they feel that if we were participants,
It
that would
helps them.
significantly strengthen their application to the state. Because if the city's a player in their project, it helps.
It does.
Yeah.
So another consideration with all of this would be that if we were to construct affordable housing ourselves, when we do it through the housing authority, that ends up costing us around $400,000 a door. $3 million into their project with 183 units comes out to a little over $16,000 a door. So in terms of a return on our investment and getting units fast at a low cost for the public dollar, that's a pretty good return on investment. So I think Dan said that's around 12 units for the second phase of the cottage development. So then you're looking at around $46,000. Both of those are well below anything that we could do if we were to hold the money and do something through the housing authority. So as a model, whether or not we want to put structure and criteria and have a process around it, as a model, this is a pretty good model for getting the units and maximizing how many units we get for the public dollars compared to doing it ourselves. But then, just that piece, the time piece is pretty essential for the Neighborly Ventures project. If we develop criteria, go through an application process, it will be moving, stretching this money out more over time. So it's going to mean that units are coming online more slowly.
Potentially
There is a time
jeopardizing
trade-off
the
there.
one project.
Pardon me?
Potentially jeopardizing the one project.
It could, yes. Yeah. So those are just all trade-offs to be considered.
Thoughts?
I just have a question about the unit way out by Corbin.
Mhm.
Are there buses out there that do that route, and we would be supporting infrastructure roads that those buses would be on?
The bus currently goes out to 4,000 Almsville Highway, which is just up the street from there, and I think that they would ultimately look at extending out just a little
there.
bit
Okay,
farther
that's,
once there's a need.
okay.
But yeah,
And there would be
They
an
go out to
increase.
the sheriff's office and jail already. They have.
Okay, then I can understand that,
And so that's just. I don't
Thanks
know,
for clarifying.
less than-
Maybe we could
less than-
right click and.
Right click and measure. I know
Well,
how
I'm
to
just
do that.
wondering, could we look it up? Because I don't know where that is. Could we pull that up on Google?
Sure.
Sorry, Deb.
I also
Almsville,
don't know where that is.
Joseph
Almsville and Joseph.
Joseph
Almsville Highway
Southeast.
and Joseph.
Is it okay that we're talking about this? Is this a quasi-judicial issue, or is it a public meeting? What are you talking about? Green light?
You're not talking
We're not talking about green light.
Okay, great. I just wanted to be sure.
You're the wrong
Thank
Joseph.
you. Do I have the wrong one?
Yeah, Greenlight is a different project. The cottages are the motion from Councilor
Is
Nishio.
that mouse very
And then
great
this
finicky?
other one that.
It is very.
This
You
is,
might want to pad,
So-
it might help.
This one is the one that I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What, are they asking something
This-
from us?
this- Yeah, there we go. Yep.
no, but there's, we'll talk about it.
Okay,
I don't know where it's at though.
I'm not sure which specific. point.
So, it's at, I can tell you, it's actually,
There's
You're-
Corbin University down here.
yeah, so it's right up in that
Further
goofy
down.
little, where it's Almsville Highway, keep going to the north. Yeah, right there. And over to where Almsville meets Deer Park. See that goofy little intersection on this side of it, south of it,
Right there, okay.
other
with that
side,
grass.
southeast. I think it's that.
Zoom in a little bit.
I believe
Wow.
it's that.
that right there.
I see some rough plans on it.
And I'm right.
6 months ago, it's in
Yeah,
that area.
Yeah, it's that funky little shape. And so if you zoom out a little bit, and go and just scroll up a little so you can see, so there's the police academy, and then the sheriff's office is the next one up, right there. The bus goes to right there currently.
Okay,
Or no, right here.
Right
Yeah.
there.
and then it goes all the way into downtown, the bus depot.
Is the pound out there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that
there's,
what we call it still? I don't.
Yeah,
yeah,
dog
the Marion
services.
County
dog
Dog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right
the
there.
Marion County Dog.
And then there's the new route just up the street that goes to Amazon. So
I
there's
think
like-
the bus is the one that goes on Lancaster
Yeah,
and then
And
makes
connects.
connections.
Okay,
And then
And you
okay,
connect,
so you
yeah.
get off and get.
you go from
okay.
bus 11 up to Center Street, connect on bus
Okay.
5, and it goes downtown.
So I'm glad the bus routes are there.
Sorry,
Is there?
We're in the weeds.
Way in the weeds.
Is there any risk, increased risk, if we, or what's the risk if we don't develop individual criteria and application process? And I'm assuming what you're saying is that it's either that or it's, we sit here. Is there, what's the trade-off there?
So, I mean, it certainly could come back to an equity and fairness consideration where we are approving these, upfront. So then let's say next spring, somebody else comes in and they've got a request for $1 to $4 million. And then do we approve it or we don't approve it? We don't have criteria for that. And then we run out of money, when we hit that 10 million. So then, there's always the risk of, well, it wasn't transparent, advertised, open, competitive, anything along those lines. So again, those are trade-offs. That's definitely a risk. But then if the goal is to get housing produced as quickly as possible, then there's also a risk of losing housing projects. So it's
We're under a
where
state
you weigh
mandate.
those.
We're under a state mandate, and it's the council's #1 priority is to produce housing and reduce homelessness. So it's a sticky wicket.
No, I just want to be clear, like, what's
Yeah.
the trade-off there?
Perception,
Yeah.
public,
Yeah.
that's the downside. The appearance, don't want to appear unfair, or like if a developer comes in after we approve this and says, well, wait a minute, I didn't know about this. I didn't know I could apply.
I was gonna do 300 units.
Right.
Well, I want to say this is a sticky wicket for me because this is a very poor location, accessibility wise. It may have at some point in the future transit, but you're at the very end of the line. And as
Right.
far as I know, this neighborhood ain't really much you can walk to.
No.
And there's not likely to be much you can walk to in the future. So in terms of where we want to put housing to further our climate objectives and provide affordable housing that people don't have to have cars to, make access to. This strikes me as the kind of location that would rate very low.
Where is
to
the
achieve
urban
those
growth
objectives.
boundary?
Not too far from there. This is actually in the Cascade School District. It's not in the Salem Kaiser School District. It's the one little section of town that's not Salem Kaiser Schools.
Christian, can you explain a little bit about why Neighborly has now converted to wanting to build all affordable housing versus doing a combination of a percentage of?
I can tell you what he told me.
Go ahead.
He doesn't pencil. Multifamily does not currently pencil unless there's government involvement. And there's not enough government involvement with mixed income levels.
Yeah.
So they're going to 100% affordable to be able to build housing. Otherwise they can't build it.
And will they be constructed somewhat differently then to be able to have it pencil out? I'm just trying to understand.
Their initial intent was to be a mirror of the Jory apartments.
Yes, that's what I understood.
And we didn't get into that much detail about that. I don't know if he did with you, but it's not going to be a duplicate of Jory.
So
I don't know
that
the
is not
physical changes.
necessarily working as well as one would have
But
thought.
it's still going to be sort of a walk-up garden style,
Yes.
Okay.
rather
style's the
than like
same,
what
but-
we have
But
downtown.
maybe square footage is different, maybe the amenities are different to keep affordability.
We didn't talk about that.
We didn't talk about that. They'll still have to meet all of our standards for design.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, is there going to be a swimming pool, that kind of thing?
Right.
we don't
But
know.
we don't have different design
And
standards.
there's
for
not
our-
any requirements of if they have all affordability, that there's any wraparound services or any social services combined with this. It's simply affordable housing, reduced rent.
This, I think, would be more like Cornerstone. They would be partnering with Community Resource Trust to
Okay.
do the
So there
management.
would be somebody.
And CRT tends to have, I'd say, light services, not like permanent supportive housing level of services.
it is gonna be, and they're the ones who built Cornerstone, and they are modeling it, you're right, they're modeling it after that.
So then again, how close are they to services and if they needed to go? I'm just trying to figure out the
Well,
location and.
So this,
To that point, and to Bob's point, you're right, it's not ideal, but we don't have ideal locations for multiple, multifamily housing.
That's
They
all
are
affordable.
mostly out nowadays. It's unfortunate. That you can afford to actually build.
they do have a second property that they're looking at developing that is on south of the kind of Kubler behind Walmart. Where they don't need these funds, there aren't the kind of offsite improvements required for that development.
So it's
this
the
one.
offsite.
That's what's driving
The
That's-
street improvements.
And then we could partner because we would have ownership of the road and that infrastructure.
That project's a little farther out.
Can I just bring up that tension of meeting immediate needs versus long-term commitments? I think kind of land with you on this idea of, for both of you. We need the units now. We also can't set our community up for failure or not put in for everything that has to do with climate action. And I'm in between those two tensions right now with this project.
So just something to consider as you're weighing that. If it's not this project, let's say they walk away from the land and they walk away from this project, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have development at that site at some point in the future and have the same climate issues. It just won't be an affordable project.
Other thoughts?
I'd have to make the same point again, is it, affordable housing is part of affordability. You have to have transportation be part of the equation. So I don't think that's going to be affordable housing, whether it's subsidized or not. And we have very limited resources to invest in affordable housing. I'd like to see us make accessible locations, affordable locations for transportation a real priority. I think that's the kind of trade-off.
So would that be working back into establishing criteria? And one of those criteria would be that it has to be located near city center or?
It should certainly be a priority to look at what are the transportation costs for the people that are looking at this location. The second highest household cost is after housing is transportation, 20%. Makes a big difference.
Could we, I'm thinking about the cottages, could we, I don't know how this group feels about it, but say there's a project that we want to invest in. Could we do that now and start the process of coming up with parameters for the rest of the money to be spent? Or does that seem like
I think we could do whatever we want. The question is, what's your tolerance for feedback?
such a great?
I mean. That's I mean, I think, because I think unless Dan has a different idea on what's legal or appropriate.
It's perfectly appropriate
Yeah.
to proceed with these applications. Sidetrack and develop criteria.
I'm focused on the dollar per door.
Yeah.
Deal. Or,
The return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That
certainly,
might be part of your criteria moving
it could
forward.
be part of my journey work.
Establish a range.
I question again, the affordability of a unit out there and actually being able to find renters for it, in the sense that if it's not a location that's accessible or meets the needs of some people, it may end up being a struggle. And I would hate to see that happen, in the sense that we built affordable housing and difficult to house.
Well, but the reason there's not bus service there currently is because it's bare ground.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that, again, to the point that it's not near a lot of things, but yes, it's in the bus route. That's I'm very happy about. I'm just saying that I feel that people will tend to be in rent from a location that better serves them. And I'm just questioning this one.
Well, when you, I mean, I hear that for sure, but when you look at the jobs that are being added,
It is, yes.
it's just down the street from Amazon and it is walkable to Amazon.
Oh, it is walkable.
Oh, for sure. There's a sidewalk and then Dollar General is going
Okay.
in just on the other side.
And it is a go, it is.
There's literally
Yep.
thousands of jobs going
Yep,
in. out
no,
there.
that, I'm
If
good.
you haven't driven out there lately, you should take a little trip out on Amstel Highway and look at all of the building that's actually happened. It's remarkable.
Would those employers want to pool their money to make these improvements?
Oh, aren't you optimistic?
Probably. They're usually willing to give away any money you ask for.
They really want to make investments in the community.
And that ship has sailed.
I would say not in the time frame to make it through the state's funding process.
Yeah.
I know I haven't said anything. I mean, I agree with you. It's not close to services, but it sounds like things are coming that direction. And the fact that the dollars per door makes a lot of sense. But then again, that's almost a third of our affordable housing budget. But if it's 183 units, this is really tough. Because we need that.
What are the offsite improvements that they're being required to make? And I assume that if it's affordable housing, they have qualified for the STC waiver, is that right?
So-
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
would
so
be
there are road improvements to bring along Amsville Road and Joseph to bring it up to urban standards. There's a water line and a sewer line extension that I think must be in Amsville.
Yeah, I don't remember what the.
And the
offsite
sewer
were.
line, they said, is an upsizing, where there would also be SDC reimbursement request down the road for that.
We are running down on time. So we need to bring this to some sort of resolution. Either we want to talk more about it or we want to go a particular direction. What's your pleasure?
From what I understand with this project, there's a timeline that we do need to make a decision at this meeting.
They're submitting their application in July.
So I think we need to make a decision on that. I don't think that I'm a yes at this point in time, but I don't think that that's gonna hurt your project. The project.
It's not my project.
I know.
Just about what it-
Is this something that would then still have to go to council for a final decision?
Oh, yeah, for granting funds.
So we need to get in the first meeting in July to do that, to meet their timeline.
It would,
We have to call. a
that's.
meeting.
What?
Oh, I was just thinking of it, the agenda cycle.
Yeah.
Oh.
Items are already due.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If that's a
special
squishy
dispensation
date.
right
We can
here.
make a motion about anything
Yeah, we can always make a motion
Yeah.
on anything, anytime.
on
apparently.
the fly.
So, Mike? Linda? We have two, I don't know, two, probably no, maybe,
I'm
No.
probably yes.
probably yes.
I'm probably yes, but I'm concerned about what happens when the costs go up. What happens with the project?
Well, that's a concern with everything we talk about in this meeting.
I mean, what happens to that 3
Wait on the
million? Do we just, I mean, they decide not to do it?
Well, we would be doing improvements with 3 million, we wouldn't.
Okay,
And I'm guessing our improvements would be contingent on the fact that they are gonna build that. I don't think they're ever gonna get to a place where they're not gonna build that and we still do the improvements.
okay.
I think
Just
those
wanted
are
to make sure I
connected
understood all
together.
of it.
Right.
Okay,
So I think you can put those concerns
Yeah.
to rest.
okay. I'm supportive of it. Just say. For the most part.
It's
That was
it's
so
a
enthusiastic.
strong probably, a wishy-washy probably, a strong maybe.
I mean, it's a lot of money and we don't have that much, but 183 units and we're supposed to be building housing. I mean, supporting it as much as possible. I think the state should be working more into this, but you know.
Well, they're gonna be, if they're successful, it'll be a lot more than 3 million
Okay, okay.
if the state's putting it.
Okay. But we're still at 3 million. It would be,
We're only good,
We would be, because our piece can only go into the
streets.
infrastructure, not into the
so
rest of
they're
the
asking for
development.
additional funds and then that. Well, I am alternate, so I guess I don't have a vote, but if I were to say, that again, cost per door is nice. And because there is a lot of jobs within close proximity. Again, a little wishy-washy.
Are we gonna make it a requirement that they work there in order to live there?
No, I don't think we can.
I'm out of the corner of my eye, can see Chris's body language, it's hilarious. Moving on.
anybody change their minds or you're still?
I understand the weight of the argument here to get the doors. I just, to address the concern that we've raised.
Yeah.
I hope we can move forward quickly with what our criteria are and that we address this kind of issue. The other thing is, if there are other requests to, advance bond money, it would be helpful to get more information sooner.
Yeah.
So that we can have this kind of discussion in a timely fashion. I feel really under the gun, and I understand everybody else is.
Yeah.
And we're gonna bring another under the gun to you.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is, let's move forward with this project. I think we have 3 yeses and 2 nos and a yes alternate. But let's move forward with criteria
Yes.
that incorporates all of these concerns into a process for future consideration.
I really want
Is
that
that-
criteria.
And
Okay.
based on this conversation, I've got some notes which I've worked with Kristen to outline, but I'm pretty clear we've got some bounds for
Yeah.
what the issues are that you would want to consider, and maybe even some beginnings of range for dollar per door and some other things that we could stipulate and consider.
But the next stop is council. I think we could quickly work some of these, these were the pros, these were the cons.
Yeah.
That would be forming future criteria.
Okay, is
And,
everybody,
I like that.
can you live with that path?
Yes.
and then Market Street.
Then we need to talk
Was-
about the cottages, the 500,000. That's one where
We have one other.
we have another one after that too. So that's one that Councilor Nishioka had initially gone directly to council, and I had asked it actually to be diverted to this committee because I want at least this much of the process in place where we actually consider it in the bigger picture.
So I'll just make some statements as to why I brought this to council and the fact that I feel very strongly of trying to prevent homelessness from happening. We're working very hard at housing people, but at the same time, like we can find a way to prevent this vulnerable seniors in particular to have housing. So I was impressed with the fact that the United Way had built the 10 small cottages and already they had well over 150 qualified applicants for the 10 units. And I wanted to see if we could support the phase, at least the next phase, for 7 more. But United Way is still also in a time crunch. If they could get some funding quickly, they could get started in July. And if not, then the contractor that United Way worked with would likely have to wait for another year. So it was postponing, again, the cost. They're about 120 per cottage, which is 399 square feet. And so we were trying to find a way of supporting this, and the amount that United Way said that they needed to secure contractor to get started was the 500,000. Kristen and Dan and Josh, I think we're all trying to be finding a creative way to provide that funding, and it comes from the bond. So I presented it, and then I was going to present it for the council to vote on, thinking that I could do that, and it was not the good move. So Chris said, to make the motion that we bring it here, and then we can talk about it. So that's
more.
where we are.
A little more.
And it's on
There you go,
Market
right there.
Street, right near.
Yep. it's right
So
there.
the first cluster went in there just down from Swiggle
On the north-hand
Elementary.
side. You're right.
right there. That's the first cluster is in those bare lots right there. We're talking about property now on the south side of Market Street. I think it's the bigger section
The little
closer to
triangles.
Blanchette's, little triangles there on the south side. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these
Yep.
are
Right underneath where it says Market Street.
other
No,
markets.
give me
It doesn't
the-
look like land
Can I
that
have
would
the
build
map
on.
Yes.
Because
you know where you're going and I don't.
It's really not.
Right here.
Really building anything on it except these
Oh,
little
there.
tiny.
And if we,
projects.
let's see, if we measure, if we right click. Yeah, so it's right here. So this is the original, the cluster that just was completed went in right here. They purchased this house and that's kind of the property manager. So right in all of these or the new current cluster, then they're going to put it, the next phase in here. And then after this, or maybe this is included with this, I'm not sure of this.
I think there's phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3.
So this is phase 3 over here. It's a small
I
little section.
think so. I think actually phase 2 is the smallest with 7 and then the next one's 9. So it might
Oh.
be that little,
Okay.
that spot right there.
But these are the two sections we're talking about.
And,
These were created when Market Street used to go right through to here. And then several years ago, we realigned Market Street to actually hook up with Sweegle, so there wasn't an offset intersection. And these surplus pieces of property were the cities. We, like Kristen said earlier, we donated them essentially to United Way
because it wasn't much.
for this project. And so we've already contributed financially to this project. We actually had to pay a right of first refusal penalty because we were 6 months early on disposing of the property. So we have actually already laid out a pretty good chunk of money on this project. My concern about this proposal, I love the project. I want to support it. Let me just be clear about that. I don't like the idea of us buying back the property that we already donated. That just doesn't sit right with me. So I would want us to come up with a different way to participate. That just doesn't pass the smell test for me. So if we can own the buildings or whatever, I'm great with that. But buying something that we donated, that seems like a charity auction where you donate something and you go bid in your own thing. It just doesn't, I don't know, which is fine when it's your personal money, but not with public money.
And I will say that talking about this more recent project and some of the other ones, I am recognizing that this may not be the right way to help. So I was just trying to find a way to see if we could support a quick construction. But if this is really outside of the bounds of a good way to help or the best way to help, I'm okay with saying, sorry, we couldn't meet your timeline.
Well, it sounds like you have other options other than us owning the land, right?
No.
The only other option would be is if we own the improvements. And I don't know how that would work for them or
Yeah.
if that's what we would want to do long-term in terms of the city owning this asset and it would take us probably more than July to negotiate that agreement.
Right. Well, Julie, they were talking at one point with your staff about a crossing there. Is that still happening and could that be a way?
We got grant funding for Safe Routes to School grant funding to put in a crossing there. And so that's, but that's grant funding.
Oh, so they were talking about specifically for this project, right? That connects the two, because the parking is on the north side of Market.
The thing that we got a grant for was doing a crossing, right in that area.
Oh, okay.
Across Market. It's
I wasn't
a
aware of that.
median island. It was 2 years ago, our application.
Okay.
It's under design right now.
Oh, okay. So that's
Yeah.
happening. All right. So
Yeah.
that's not an option. Okay. Anyway. Thoughts?
With you, I like the project, but I don't like either one of the alternative paths for the city to be involved. Either pursuing the property back or owning the physical assets.
This one's kind of interesting because we don't have to own it forever. We just have to own it through 2026. And then we could, give it
Donate it
back.
again?
That's it, right?
That's
So you
it.
donate it
Yeah,
3
that
times.
just doesn't pass the smell test to me.
Donate it, buy it back, donate it again.
Yeah, I don't.
That's a rough one.
Yeah, I agree.
How does this fit are there criteria, the cost per door? Sort of,
It's around $46,000 a door.
And this is homelessness prevention. These are not for currently homeless people necessarily. It's
Yes.
for seniors. They get to live there at a fixed rate. I think it's $500 a month.
plus their cost of the electricity and everything else is paid for. So it's a really great deal for those that, so some of the examples are a couple who, a spouse dies and now the remaining spouse is priced out of where they are and need to find a new spot. You know, so again, it was more in that prevention instead of currently unhoused.
And they're all full, the current ones, they filled them up, they were ready to
Lickety
go
split, yeah,
when
they're all in.
immediately.
To be transparent, the Neighborly Ventures project is not targeting those that are homeless.
Right,
It's
no, no, no.
affordable.
Yeah. Thank you for it. Anyway, I think it's a great project. Whether or not this is the best way or to re-support it is really a question. And now that I understand more, I'm okay with however.
Are there any other ways? I mean, you know, when
Not with
counselor-
bond money.
well, yeah. I
This one
understand
doesn't
that, but-
have the kind of off-site infrastructure requirements that the others do.
And no connectivity needs in existing infrastructure?
I don't think so.
No, we're really limited in this one.
Because it's infill.
Right,
Which is great.
everything's right there.
Yeah.
The streets
And
already
that's
approved.
kind of the trade-off and the challenge too.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we're never gonna do anything with this property
Never.
other than put these tiny cottages
Yeah,
on it, because
nothing
it's so small. There's no, I mean, that's literally the only use. It's either that or continue to mow it,
Community garden.
or community garden.
But that property's already been donated. to-
Yes, that part's over.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
They've received it, they just need
Yeah.
funding.
They're just
So
fundraising
really
to
this is
do.
a fundraiser to kick it off so that it happens now, not. like,
Correct,
A year.
Give us
from
another
now,
year or 2 years
Right.
to raise the additional
Yeah.
funding,
right.
because it will get done. It's
Eventually,
just a
Yes.
timing issue.
as long as they continue to have donations.
What's your pleasure? We need to move on.
I don't like buying the property back. It just doesn't look good.
You're a no,
No,
you're a
no.
no.
I'm a
I
Pretty
like the
sure I would
project,
know.
though.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, you
It's
won't
a
need
great
my
idea.
vote to fail this, so I'm a yes.
It's
How's
not,
that?
I'll
You're
be,
a no.
I'll be a no.
So it's 1 to 5, got it. I'm the only one that wanted this to go, got it. Okay,
Thank you for all
Thank
your
you.
work on doing
After
this.
Now,
you
who's-
lobby
are
for
we
a
doing
no,
this?
and
That's
then, who does that remind me of? Who does that remind me of?
I don't know, I have no idea.
Weird.
So,
Do
so
I-
you thought you wanted to buy some affordable housing.
Thanks
You
for
will like
listening,
this one,
everybody.
Bob, it's right in the middle of town.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Location, location, location.
That's what we're saying. I think that should be the first line on our criteria.
There you
All
go.
right, there it is. Okay, so this is something that the committee has seen before. This is the Gussie Brown Apartments. This is a development by Greenlight Home First. Last year, we came to talk to you because they had a purchase and sale agreement with Salem Health to buy the old Salem General Hospital property and had trouble getting to close because they couldn't get their financing through. So the committee and then council authorized us to take an assignment of their purchase and sale agreement from Salem Health. So we stepped into the shoes of Greenlight. Essentially, they're requested, it's not as bad as it looks, but potentially we'd be using up to $3.4 million in affordable housing funds to complete the purchase from Salem Health to the city. And then ideally, Greenlight would then be closing with the city and purchasing the property from us. And so it would essentially be a net zero out of affordable housing funds used. The reason we're here today is it's gotten a little more complicated. Just to talk about the development a little bit, it's a pretty interesting development. Greenlight is partnering with Seeds of Faith Ministries. They're hoping to have an affordable housing development that has, it's not exclusive for people of color, but they would be emphasizing that and working with a property manager who would understand the needs and be able to market it to that community. They also want to include an early education center or a daycare center on the site. This is a really bad picture of the site. It's about 10 acres.
Center Street on the bottom, D Street on the top, and then an access off of 23rd. So we completed the transaction. We have a purchase and sale agreement with Salem Health. We then turned around and did a purchase and sale agreement with Greenlight, complete with a lease back to them or to them to allow them to do on-site due diligence, as well as submit a land use application for site plan approval, which is currently pending with the city. So the terms of the agreement with Salem Health is we have closed with them. We own the property, but we haven't paid them yet. We don't have to pay Salem Health until December of 31st of this year. The purchase price was essentially $4 million. Greenlight had already paid $200,000 in escrow. So the purchase price, the net was $3.8 million. Again, if Greenlight is able to close with us by the end of the year, we would pay off Salem Health and it would be essentially a net zero. If they're unable to close by the end of the year, we would need to utilize bond funds to pay Salem Health. Let's see, I'm getting ahead of myself with the slides here. So there is an added complication that we were generally aware of when we entered into the transaction. There's a portion of the property, about 1 acre, that has been confirmed through ground penetrating radar and other testing that it is a burial site for, I believe, patients of the old Salem General Hospital. Because with the GPR, we can't get into a lot of detail on where they are and what's there exactly, but they've done GPR testing that's confirmed that there were ground penetrating radar. I'm sorry, the GPR. That there are probable burial sites there. We don't know if those were ever exhumed, but we're just assuming that they are. Pursuant to state law, that area is essentially a conservation area. It's designated a historic resource. While there is a method to remove the historic artifacts and develop it, it would be an extremely politically charged issue. It's very difficult to get through with the state review. And so essentially it's not developable for anything other than passive recreation. This is another really bad map, I apologize, but I wanted to show you the conservation area. The scale obviously is not really good, but the area, sorry folks online, but the area we're looking at for the conservation area is this general area right here.
It abuts the cemetery there. Adjacently cemetery.
This area right here is their phase 1 development, and this area here is their phase 2 development. They're in for site plan on the phase 1 development right now. So because of the historic nature of that conservation area, the city's expressed an interest to retain it so we could develop a park or memorial for that area. Salem Health has also expressed an interest to assist in that. Greenlight, because they can't develop it, is more than willing to not acquire that conservation area, but has requested a reduction in the purchase price. So where we're at, basically, in addition to that, there's also pedestrian improvements on D Street that would be really great. We would love to have a rapid flashing beacon on D Street near the property, as well as another improvement on one of the other side streets. The total cost of those improvements, Public Works has informed me, is about $400,000. So after talking to Salem Health and to Greenlight, here's where we're at. Salem Health has offered to reduce the purchase price for the city from $3.8 million to $3.4 million, so adding $400,000 to it. They've also requested that if they do that, that we pay off the purchase price as soon as possible. Right now, our agreement says we don't have to pay them till the end of the year. However, if they're going to reduce the purchase price, we would try to pay them off sooner utilizing bond funds. The city would reduce Greenlight's purchase price by $200,000 from 3.8 to 3.6 million. We would use $400,000 in affordable housing funds to construct those pedestrian improvements. And then we'd use the 3.4 million of affordable housing funds to pay Salem Health. We would then get reimbursed from Greenlight when they close. That when they close has kind of been a moving target. That's the whole reason the city's been involved in this transaction, because they weren't able to timely close with Salem Health. They have assured me that they have the money, they're ready to close, they can do it very soon. But again, That's not a certain. So, the net result for the city, upon Greenlight closing, is that the city will spend a net amount of $200,000 on affordable housing funds and will retain the 1 acre conservation area. And pay for the pedestrian improvement to D Street. Meanwhile, Greenlight, will be ready to go in their phase 1. They're in for land use approval. And this will facilitate, having their phase 2 development underway. Alternative scenario, or worst case scenario, depending on how you look at it, is if Greenlight is unable to close, our purchase and sale agreement could terminate. The city would retain the property, and we'd have spent the $3.4 million to Salem Health. We wouldn't have to spend the $200,000 on the pedestrian improvements. We would then own the property. It's 10 acres minus the 1 acre conservation area. It's a perfect site for affordable housing, centrally located with transit. Near Yaquina Hall and near a park. And we could then work with another developer, perhaps even the housing authority, to develop it. Greenlight has spent a tremendous amount of time and money on this already. They're in for site plan. They've done a ton of work on it already. They're committed to this. They're going to close. So I don't think this is going to happen. It may be pushed off a little bit past January, but they're going to get there. But at any rate, at the worst case, we would still have the property and we would still be able to develop it in the future. Talking to Greenlight this week, they have told me they're more than willing to go forward as we discussed. In order to create a legal parcel for the 1 acre conservation area, they need to create a legal lot. That's going to require another partition application. They're going to carry the water on that and pay for that. That's going to take anywhere from 6 to 9 months to do. So we can't close on the entire transaction with Greenlight right now because they don't have a legal lot to sell us. So what they've proposed is to pay $3 million to us now to acquire most of phase 1 and the phase 2. And then, because there are several legal lots there right now that they're reconfiguring as part of their current application. They would go ahead and we would close on that. They would pay $3 million. Then the remaining $600,000 they would pay once the conservation area is partitioned off.
Anything else?
That's all I've got.
Questions?
Yeah, on D Street, I think this might be for somebody. You're talking about putting in a rapid beacon light, rapid.
Yes.
Is that at that intersection there? Because the 4-way stop already. I'm just wondering if we need the lights as well, or if it's somewhere else.
I was thinking it was on the connector street, but I know that D Street is a concern, but you're right, there's a 4-way stop, so we would not need anything at that intersection.
Okay.
I'd have to circle back to staff to see if they were thinking about a crossing. Whether it's at the west, kind of at the edge of the property.
I'm not sure where the rapid flashing would be, but I believe the other improvement they were talking about was 23rd.
Which is the one that goes along the east side of the
That's the one
property?
along the east
Yes.
side.
Right,
So I know there's a crossing.
maybe to the park there is that B Street?
Yeah, there's an intersection with Yaquina.
Yeah, that would make
When
sense.
kids cross for a school.
And there's a school zone that starts just to the west of there.
Yeah, there's a school to the northwest and to the northeast.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the split is gonna be with these kiddos
Right.
who live there.
So one of the issues on D is there's no sidewalk along the south
Yeah.
side of the street,
Mm-hmm.
basically right about where the edge of the development is there.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm thinking that we may have suggested a pedestrian crossing right in that location, so people that are on the south side don't have to go east and cross where they walk west. But they could cross.
So it might be a mid-block
In
flash
that area, it might be in the park. I'd have to follow up.
I believe that's what Kevin told me.
Okay.
Maybe you and I can, I don't want to hold up the meeting.
Thanks.
I do
Okay.
have another thing.
Thoughts?
I hear
Questions?
200,000 for 100 units.
Yeah.
And going back to.
In the middle of town.
Yeah, going back to location.
We
Right,
can all agree.
is that it makes sense for that. So to me, it's worth the. juice is worth the squeeze.
So good location. I think just seeing the design, I think it could be better in terms of pedestrian orientation, but I think you have to take what we get.
Okay, everybody's a thumbs up. Great. Thank you. Okay, developer, let's see, developer pass-throughs. Kristen left.
Yeah, she
So I
just.
guess we're done with that.
That was the burger property.
Oh, that was the one that we did. Okay. It was coded language that I didn't understand. Okay, local vendor report. Rick, give us your really down and dirty quick version.
Really simply, we're still working with most people around the area. We're
Great.
70%.
Yeah, good job, good job.
And everybody has a copy of that?
Everybody has a copy of that, and the following bond cash flow update, there's really nothing changed from the last time we talked to you. We're spending more now because things are moving into construction and design is underway well, so.
Excellent. Thank you. Good job standing
Very
in for
good.
Alan. You weren't quite as funny as he is, but you're working on it.
I'll work on that.
Yeah. Anything else for the good of the order?
Engineer fund.
Yeah, engineer fund, yes. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. 15 minutes late.
Oh,